Hello, and welcome to TuscanInvestor.com. My name is Sean Casterline. I'm the Managing Director of Private Equity for a senior living development group called Tuscan Gardens, based out of Central Florida. Senior living has touched all of us. Everybody has had a mother, a father, a grandfather, an uncle that they had to explore senior living on behalf of. And really, that's where Tuscan Gardens, the brand, the story begins. I want to introduce you to this lovely lady. Her name is Maria Giordano. Maria is the mother of our founding partner, Larry, and Maria was actually born and raised in a small town called Bari, Italy. Sam, Larry's dad, was actually in the Air Force and based in Bari, Italy in World War II. In 2010, Larry was actually in the process of selling a very successful business, and at the same time, he was looking for a place to put his mom, who at that time had turned 92. As he looked around Central Florida, he simply couldn't find a place that he felt comfortable putting his own mother, and that's really where the Tuscan Gardens brand was born, was from necessity like most of us have experienced. Tuscan Gardens is a senior living brand specializing in upscale independent living, assisted living, and memory care communities around the state of Florida and also the Southeast. Let me define the industry for you so we all understand what the industry looks like. There's really 4 distinct places within senior living and a 5th brand that encompasses the previous 4. Tuscan Gardens represents a brand developing independent living, assisted living, and memory care communities. We think these 3 are really the sweet spot in the industry, and they provide our loved ones and our residents a continuation of care as they age. Tuscan Gardens, the brand, represents a model, and as you can imagine, Tuscan Gardens aesthetically rich Tuscan architecture, stylistic features and living patterns, a luxurious residential environment, a concierge level of care. And again, when I talk about senior living, the new senior living communities, the next generation of senior living communities, which I certainly believe Tuscan Gardens is part of, these communities are much more like resorts. They're much more like an upscale residence, unlike a lot of the older communities we saw when we first came into this industry. Many of the activities in a Tuscan Gardens senior living community will be things like movie night and ice cream socials, but the majority of activities in our communities are based around art and music and things the Alzheimer's Association tells us keep seniors engaged. Gourmet, chef-inspired cuisines in all of our communities. Probably the biggest driver in the entire industry today is food. It's a major part of our residents' life. And I'll give you an example. In our Tuscan Gardens Venetia Bay community, our chef every week meets with our residents, asks them what they like about last week's menu, what they didn't like, what they'd like to see on next week's menu, and then next week he actually highlights in yellow all their suggestions. So as you can imagine, it's a very engaging relationship that even the chef has with all of our residents. Cutting edge technology is another differentiator in this business, and certainly one that Tuscan Gardens is on the front edge of. All of our rooms are Skype enabled. So let's say, for example, you've been going to see mom every Wednesday night for the last 10 years and you're thinking to yourself, hey, I'd like to go a cruise. Well, you can still communicate with your mom every Wednesday. You'll simply be doing it through the Skype enabled rooms. Last thing I'd mention to you is that all of our Tuscan Gardens communities have working gardens. So if our residents enjoy their retirement years out in the garden pruning rose bushes and growing tomato plants, they're still able to do that within our Tuscan Gardens communities. Tuscan Gardens is a brand that prides itself on the art of living with purpose, passion, and joy. And one of the main goals in all of our communities is engaging with our loved ones, engaging with our seniors. We put together a team of partners that are second to none in the business. First of all, I'd introduce you to Sage Age Strategies. Sage Age Strategies is a group that does nothing but marketing and advertising for senior living communities around our country. They've filled over 750 communities around the country, and they're actually one of Inc. 500's fastest growing companies in 2014. Greenbrier is a regional operator. They've got over 150 years of experience on their team, and it's a group that we've outsourced the day-to-day operations to at a localized level. So when you look at our external team that's put together, you can imagine it's a very enticing team for investors like yourself, but also for institutional investors. Let me introduce you to some of the relationships that Bill Johnston, our Chief Investment Officer, has helped to put together. When you're developing a senior living community, there's a component of equity, which would be investors like yourselves, and there's a component of debt. Now, when we're building communities, we have several forms of debt that we could use. We could use bank debt, we can use insurance company debt, or we could issue bonds. And with our Venetia Bay community and our Palm Coast community, we decided to issue bonds. For senior debt, we decided to use 142D bonds. And when we issued those bonds, the biggest buyers of our bonds in Venice were Oppenheimer, Nuveen, and Pioneer. In Palm Coast, the biggest buyers of our bonds were Neuberger Berman and Nuveen. I'm sure these are all companies you know. I'm sure they're companies you probably own today in your 401k, your IRA. These are 100-year-old Wall Street bond companies that do a significant level of due diligence. They've looked at our internal team, they've looked at our external team, and they invested a lot of debt money with us. So when we look at the institutional investors that we've brought in to invest alongside of our equity investors, I think you'll agree it's a very impressive team. We currently have open operational communities in Tavares, Florida, Claremont, Florida, Stuart, Florida, and Venice, Florida. We're currently under construction in Palm Coast and Delray Beach. We're going through the entitlement and permitting process in Orlando, Florida, and Columbia, South Carolina. Let me introduce you to Tuscan Gardens of Venetia Bay. Tuscan Gardens of Venetia Bay is a 78-unit assisted living community with 58 units of memory care rooms. It's 130,000 square feet, and it's all private pay. As you can see from this picture, an absolutely beautiful community. You'll see the open Tuscan kitchen in Venetia Bay. One of the trademarks of all of our communities is this open Tuscan kitchen. So when you walk into any Tuscan Gardens community, one of the first things you're going to see is this open Tuscan kitchen where people can gather for hors d'oeuvres and appetizers and generally drinks as well. On the left, you'll see the doors to our movie theater. A little bit further to the left, you'll see the workout and rehabilitation room. We also have a spa on the other side. These communities are all high-end, resort-like communities. These are not old nursing homes we're developing. So when you look at the Tuscan Gardens brand and you look at the internal and executive team, the external team, and our capital providers, I think you can agree with me that we've made concerted efforts to bring in the top players in the industry, and we're excited about the team that we put together. I want to introduce you to the Tuscan Gardens Senior Living Fund. The fund is a $25 million fund, and it encompasses 5 properties. Our properties in Venice, Florida, Palm Coast, Florida, Delray Beach, Florida, Orlando, Florida, and Columbia, South Carolina. Now, it's a defined fund, so it's a $25 million capital raise. That $25 million is going to go into the development of these 5 communities. The fund itself is actually unique in the fact that it's a multi-class fund. If you as an investor like the senior living industry, but you also like the thought of being diversified, you can invest in Class A. Class A will invest your money equally in all 5 communities. If, for example, you live in Palm Coast or you have a relative in Delray Beach, the flexibility of our fund also allows you to invest in one specific community, and you can also mix and match. So again, it's a very flexible fund for you as an investor. The Tuscan Gardens Senior Living Fund does have a $50,000 minimum. Now again, as you know from going through our website, we can only take accredited investors in the Tuscan Gardens Senior Living Fund, and with that, we also have to have higher minimums. But I will let you know that it is IRA eligible. So if you've retired from General Motors, if you've retired from UPS, and the majority of your wealth is tied up in an IRA from your old 401k, you can actually invest in the Tuscan Gardens Senior Living Fund, and certainly look forward to exploring that with you. Expected holding period is 5 years. So it takes about 1.5 years to build these communities. It takes about 2 years to fill these communities, and all 5 of our properties are on the correct timeline for that 5-year window. The fund itself has 2 layers to returns for investors like you. So the first piece is there's an 8% immediate income paid to our investors. All of our investors, of course, have to qualify. They have to go through our legal team. We have to do our due diligence. So there's a 60-day waiting period to start the income. But again, after that first 60 days, the income starts, the checks go out monthly. The second component to returns to our investors is really almost more like a profit sharing component. We build the community, we stabilize the community, we sell off the community. At that point, we split profits with our investors. So I just give you a quick example. If we build a community for $45 million, we sell it 5 years later for $50 million, that $5 million gain gets split between our investors and Tuscan Gardens. I think you'd agree we've put together one of the most exceptional teams in senior living. Both our internal team, our external partners, and I would certainly throw in our capital providers as well. If you'd like to connect with me directly, you can see my phone number and my email address on the screen. This offering is only made through what's called a private placement memorandum. A PPM is our disclosure document. I'm happy to forward one on to you. And with that, I'll thank you for visiting with us at TuscanInvestor.com.